I consider myself to be a completionist. Until now, I have platinumed some pretty difficult and tedious games, including titles like Cuphead, Crash 4, Dead by Daylight, and all of the Borderlands series. So it probably makes sense when I say I like a challenge when it comes to gaming. However, it seems like there is a challenge that I've never really been successful with. Now, since the release of World at War, I've put multiple hours into every Call of Duty game that's been released. Well, except for some of the weaker titles. Cough cough. But even though I've played all of these, I've only ever got 100% completion on one. Arguably one of the most difficult and beloved in the franchise, Black Ops 3. But now, I've decided I'm going to change that and add Black Ops 6 to my growing list of completed games. So, welcome to this new series I'm calling Call of Duty Completionist. So to start this series off, I'm going to be looking at the 4 melee weapons that have been introduced with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover. I'm going to take these weapons up to the strongest damage I can get them to do, and then I'm going to see how they fare in each of the different maps, and actually see how viable they are all the way up to the max health cap of the zombies. Now you're going to see a small stats box as I'm going through these weapons, just to compare the damage done at different stages. So as you can see now, there's going to be the damage when you originally spawn into the match, where it's just a grey rarity weapon and with no Pack-a-Punch, and then I'm going to show you the damage it does when it's at gold rarity and Pack-a-Punch tier 3. Now alongside the base health damage, I'm also going to show you armor damage as well, and I'm also going to compare the speed at which the melee weapons attack, because they all have different speeds, and as you'll soon see, they all change the way that the weapons work and how much damage they all do. So yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the first melee weapon. So as you can see right now, I'm using the staff. This is the first weapon I'm going to go through, and I've been grinding for, does it say 23 minutes? That's not true. I've been grinding for a while, trying to get the kills for this weapon, and so far, the bow, I'm liking it. It seems quite powerful as a melee weapon. It's a little bit slow, so I had to change the melee macchiato augment, so I had faster attack speed. But other than that, yeah, this is quite a strong weapon. As you can see at the bottom right, I've got it down to gold pat 3, and I want to test these all out at their like peak damage, or like peak performance, to see how far in the game these weapons can actually take you. So as you can see, while I'm hitting a zombie here, that says what, 67,000 is that? Yeah, 67,200 damage on a zombie. Now I want to hit this mangler. 27,000 on armor, which isn't bad. Hit him again. Okay, so round 32 is a 2-hit. It's not bad. Okay, so we have just flipped over to round 50, and as you can see, it's still a 1-hit. Now, I wanted to bring it up to round 50 because this is pretty much the... I'm pretty sure 50 is the health cap. Might be 55. But realistically, there's not much difference between now and round 55, meaning that round 100 zombies will be acting like this. I'm not gonna lie, I've never taken a melee weapon up to round 50 before, and I spent the entire game using the melee weapon, and it's actually really strong. I mean, as I will show you now, like that's a full health mangler, 1, 2, 3 hits. Like it's incredibly strong, honestly. Now the only thing this struggles with is the manglers. Not the manglers, sorry, the abominations. And there's a dying wish. But to be honest, I don't think a single melee weapon is good against the abominations, so I wouldn't really worry about that too much. So yeah, overall, this is not a bad melee weapon, I'm not gonna lie. I think the only thing that holds this back is it's quite a slow melee weapon, so without the augment on melee macchiato that gives you the faster attack speed, it's a bit sluggish. But I mean, at the end of the day, you want it for power, and it seems to do the job. So yeah, I would say it's time to move on to the next melee weapon. And this should be the last guy for round 49. Woo, there's 50. This is a very cool inspect, I can't lie. You know what? That's a pretty sick Pack-a-Punch skin as well. But yeah, so I've just done another run using... Oh, shit. I've just done a run with the katanas. Now, these were a lot easier to use than the bow. They were a lot easier. Mainly just because they attack faster. So it makes it a lot easier to get in and get out without, you know, without dying. I don't have melee, that's why I'm struggling. Hold up. Grab all of my goodies. Show me a zombie without armor. 44k. 44, 44, 44. So, this is not health cap. I'm pretty sure, oh my god, I'm pretty sure health cap is 50k health or 55k health. So yeah, maybe 55 is the health cap. But by the looks of it, this is not going to be a one-shot forever. It does decent damage. It will get you, I mean, I'm still one-shotting now at 50. So it does decent damage. It can take you pretty far. It is slightly weaker than the bow. However, the trade-off for the extra hits for the slightly less damage, I would say is probably worth it. Especially if you want to be going up the rounds like relatively quickly. Okay, now, as we are coming to the end of the round, I've saved a Mimic and a Doppelgast. They're mostly full health. I want to see... Let me do this. Oh no, wait, I can't do that. Because there is a Mimic. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3. 3 hits on the Doppelgast. And if I can get near the guy, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll take a few more hits to get the Mimic. Doppelgast seem to be quite a bit weaker just because of how fast they are. But yeah, not gonna lie, a solid piece of kit if you were to ask me. So yeah, the katanas are pretty cool. I will show all the stats on screen like I did for the bow, and yeah, let us move on to melee weapon number 3. So here we go again. We are now on Citadel. I have taken the 3rd melee weapon, the sides, all the way up to round 50. These are the last few zombies here. Now I'll tell you what, these, I've had the most fun with these so far. These are really quick and they're decently powerful. They do 76,000. Look at that. Why does that do more than the swords? That's weird. But yeah, these are fun. These are quick. I mean, look how rapid this is. Bah, bah, bah. You can get loads of attacks off on these. I think it's because it's close range. That might be why it's slightly more powerful than the katanas, because you've got a bit more reach on them. But yeah, these are by far my favourite melee weapons so far. And they look sick. But yeah, these things do insane damage. Look at that. 50k armor damage. That's health cap armor damage. It's insane. But yeah, I would definitely recommend trying these ones out. I've had the most fun with these. And I've got one more left, the nunchucks. Also, just before I swap, I want to try and hit the Doppelgast. So, if you can hurry up, my guy. Hurry up, my guy. I'm going to shock him. Now, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. These are just ridiculous, honestly. Anyway, like I said, onto the nunchucks. Okay, so we have made it to round 51 with the nunchucks. I tried doing this on Liberty Falls and I got so close to round 50. I think it was around 48 and I got overrun. I wasn't really paying attention and I died. So I've had to redo it again. I've used the Staff of Ice to just fly up the rounds. So now we are at round 51. We can see the stats. We are doing, that was 28,000 to armor. And, oh my goodness, show me a zombie. Boom, boom, boom. 40, I missed it. 44, 160 to the health. So, damage-wise, it's about the same as the katanas, I think. However, it is so fast. Like, you can speed through this. Let me put Frenzy Guard on, I'll show you what I mean. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's so fast. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the most fun melee weapons I've used, just because of how fast it is. Especially with Melee Macchiato, where you add the add-on on that increases the speed even more. This thing is a machine. The only issue with it is the damage. So like I said, it does the same amount of damage as the swords. In the description it says a 2-hit, so on multiplayer obviously it's not going to be as good. But the speed of these melee weapons makes up for the slightly lack of damage. And also, trying to get this thing dark matter, this was the fastest 2,000 kills I've had with any weapon. Only because of the speed. Like, it's insane. So if you can find yourself a nice fast spawning area in any map, you can fly up the challenges for this. But overall, yeah, a very good set of melee weapons. So here we go after the grind. As you can see on the screen, we've got the stats for all 4 of the weapons. Going from left to right, I went from slowest to fastest, and the order I completed them in as well in this video. So as you can see, for the grey Unpack-a-Punch weapons, there's not much damage in it. So to be honest, it doesn't really matter what you go for early rounds. But we're here to see how strong these weapons get. Now this is where the gold Pack-a-Punch 3 section comes in. So I was kind of surprised how well all of these actually did. So, just a reminder, the zombie's health cap is 50,000 damage. Now I've looked this up, this does happen at around 55, so in the video I was a few rounds off, but for the purposes of the stats and everything, we're still able to get an accurate result of how well they're going to do. So, starting off with Donatello's staff, as you can see, base health without any armor, the staff was doing 67,200 damage, which is way above the health cap, which means it's going to do decent damage to any specials and elite enemies that you come into. When it comes to hitting armoured zombies, it's doing about 43,680 damage. And I was able to test this on a Mangler, and it was about half damage for the Mangler's armour, at around 26,880 damage. Now the reason all this damage is quite high is because the weapon speed is actually really slow. So I started this video not using the melee macchiato augment that speeds up your attack speed. However, after getting halfway through the bow staff, I had to put this on because it was taking too long. So everything I'm talking about and all of the stats shown on screen are whilst using melee macchiato and these augments. However, overall, Donatello's bow staff was actually quite good to use, it just took a bit of time. Now if we move over to Leonardo's katanas, we can see straight away that there's quite a bit of a damage drop off. Now the main reason I think that this damage has dropped off so much is because of the weapon speed. The description of this weapon says the weapon speed is moderately fast, and it shows when you're using the weapon, as you're able to get a lot more hits off per second. So I can understand why they've dropped the damage just a little bit here. But looking at the gold PAP 3, it does 44,160 damage to health, and around 28,700 to armoured zombies. So out of the 2 I'd reviewed so far, I would be using Leonardo's katanas over the bow staff, just because of the speed. If you're looking for damage, then I would go for the bow staff. Now moving on to Raphael's Sai, this weapon really surprised me. Now although this is the fastest weapon I'd used to this point, it surprised me that the damage was overall higher than anything else I'd used. So for the health of normal zombies, it was doing up to 76,800 damage, which is insanely high. And for any armor on zombies, it was doing almost 50,000 damage, which is basically the health cap of a zombie. Now at first look, I thought this was absolutely insane. If you look at the description, you can see the range is very short for these weapons. So to compensate for having to get even closer to all these zombies and in more danger, I can see why they've bumped the damage up. So this now makes the Sais my #1 weapon of choice to use out of the 3 melee weapons so far. Now moving on to the 4th and final weapon, Michelangelo's nunchucks. Now the description for this weapon says the speed is very fast, and having used it, I can understand why. This is one of the fastest melee weapons I've ever used, and it shows, and it's very fun to use. Even though the weapon's damage isn't quite as strong as the rest, it is understandable because of how fast you can actually use these melee weapons. So looking at the damage it does to zombie health, 44,160, and the armor is at 28,700. Now as you'll notice, this lines up perfectly with Leonardo's katanas. Now the main difference I'm seeing here is the nunchucks are extremely fast and close range, whereas the katanas are slightly slower, but you've got a lot more range on them. So depending on whether you want to be careful or just absolutely destroy the zombies at fast pace, it gives you a choice of either or. So to finalise, I'm going to rank these weapons 1 to 4, based on how well I think they did, and how likely I am to run them in future. So starting off, the weapon that I think absolutely clears this list is Raphael's Sais. Because of the insane speed at which you can use them, and the insane damage it gives off, I think this is a no-brainer. Now for the 2nd and 3rd spot, I'm going to do these together, and I'll explain why. In the second spot, I'm going to put Michelangelo's nunchucks, and in the third spot, I'm going to put Leonardo's katanas. Now, these two, like I said, have very similar stats, almost identical when it comes to damage, but for me, the fact that you can attack so much faster with the nunchucks, it makes the nunchucks just edge slightly ahead of the katanas for me. Now this leaves the fourth spot, Donatello's staff. Now the reason I've done this, yes, it has a lot of damage, but for me, it's way too slow to use. So if I'm going to be using it as just a standard in the pocket, pull out a knife every now and then, I'm going to leave that as my final pick. And that is my ranking. If you're still listening and you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the video, and this maybe helps you out if you're deciding whether you want to buy one of the skins or not, depending on which weapon you want to use. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video.